If you are over the age of 50, there is a very good chance that right now, somewhere in your body, your nerves are sending signals more slowly than they did 20 years ago. Maybe you have noticed some tingling in your feet. Maybe your balance feels a little less certain. Maybe your fingertips do not feel quite as sharp as they once did. For decades, doctors have told patients that this is simply part of getting older, that nerve damage is irreversible, that peripheral neuropathy, which affects an estimated 20 million Americans, is something you learn to manage, not something you can address at the root level. But today, we are going to explore something that ancient healers used for centuries, and that modern researchers are now studying through a completely different lens, not for malaria, not for heart rhythms, but for what its remarkable compounds may mean for the aging nervous system. We are talking about cinchona bark, the original source of quinine, harvested high in the Andes Mountains of South America. And while the full story is more nuanced than most health channels will tell you, the science behind this bark is genuinely fascinating. Stay with us. Let us start at the beginning, because you cannot appreciate the solution until you understand the problem. Your peripheral nervous system is the vast communication network that extends from your spinal cord to every corner of your body, your hands, your feet, your organs, your skin. It carries two types of signals: signals going out from the brain to tell your muscles to move, and signals coming back in to report what you are touching, whether you are hot or cold, whether the ground beneath your feet is stable or uneven. Now, running along every one of those nerve fibers is something called the myelin sheath. Think of it like the rubber coating on an electrical wire. Without that insulating coating, electrical signals leak out, slow down, and become distorted. The same thing happens with your nerves. When the myelin sheath is thick, healthy, and intact, nerve signals travel at remarkable speeds, anywhere from 50 to 70 meters per second in well-myelinated fibers. That is roughly the speed of a motorcycle on a highway. But here is what the research now confirms happens with age. A landmark 2024 review published in the Journal of Neurochemistry found that as we age, the genes responsible for producing myelin proteins are progressively downregulated, meaning the body produces less of the molecular machinery needed to maintain this critical nerve insulation. Schwann cells, the specialized cells in the peripheral nervous system whose entire job is to build and maintain that myelin coating, begin to lose their ability to function properly. Their repair programs weaken. The c-Jun signaling protein, which acts as the master initiator of nerve repair after damage, becomes less responsive in older individuals. Research published in the journal Neuroscience in 2025 showed that in aged animals, the myelin sheaths became measurably thinner, the nerve fibers became smaller in diameter, and key myelin proteins, including one called myelin basic protein, or MBP, were significantly reduced even in Schwann cells that appeared otherwise intact. The result? Signals slow down, sensory information becomes distorted, balance suffers, coordination declines. And that burning, tingling, or numbness that so many seniors experience is often not a disease appearing from nowhere. It is the accumulated result of decades of gradual myelin thinning, combined with increased oxidative stress and low-grade inflammation targeting nerve tissue. And this brings us to a critically important point. The science of nerve decline is not just about getting older. It is about oxidative damage and neuroinflammation, two processes that accelerate the breakdown of nerve tissue. And it is precisely these two processes where cinchona bark's compounds have drawn scientific attention. Cinchona is a genus of evergreen trees native to the cloud forests and lower Andes Mountains of South America, in what is today Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. The Quechua people, the indigenous people of Peru, had been using the bark of cinchona trees for generations, primarily to manage fever and chills. In the 1630s, European missionaries brought it back to Europe, where it became the first effective treatment for malaria, changing the course of history. Over the next 4 centuries, it played a role in medicine so profound that it influenced colonialism, military campaigns, and eventually gave birth to the entire modern antimalarial drug class. Now most people know cinchona as the source of quinine, the bitter compound still used in tonic water today. But quinine is only one of more than 30 alkaloids identified in the bark. According to a comprehensive review published in the journal Biointerfacial Research, the 4 primary quinoline alkaloids in cinchona bark are: the total alkaloid concentration in dried bark can range from 6 to 15% by weight, depending on the species. Beyond these alkaloids, cinchona bark also contains a rich profile of other compounds, including quinic acid, caffeic acid, flavonoids, phytosterols, and significant concentrations of tannins, which account for 3 to 10% of the bark's dry weight. A published study evaluating Cinchona officinalis found that the bark's phenolic content, meaning its antioxidant active plant polyphenols, reached over 21% in some extracts. These phenolic compounds are not minor details. They are central to why researchers are now looking at this bark through a completely different lens. Here is where we need to be both honest and thorough, because this is a senior health channel and you deserve the truth, not exaggeration. Let us be clear about what the current science shows and what it does not show. There are no completed human clinical trials directly testing cinchona bark tea as a treatment for peripheral neuropathy. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not being accurate. What science does show, and what is genuinely exciting, is the pharmacological activity of this bark-specific compounds against the very biological mechanisms that drive nerve deterioration with age. Let us go through the evidence compound by compound. First, the quinoline alkaloid framework. A 2023 peer-reviewed study published in the journal Antioxidants by researchers analyzing quinoline derivatives, the chemical family to which cinchona's alkaloids belong, found that this molecular framework demonstrates significant antioxidant activity, with some derivatives proving more efficient than Trolox, a benchmark vitamin E analog widely used in antioxidant research. The study confirmed that quinoline-based compounds show promise as inhibitors of acetylcholinesterase and monoamine oxidase, enzymes directly linked to cognitive and neurological function. Why does this matter for your nerves? Because oxidative stress, the accumulation of destructive free radical molecules, is one of the primary drivers of myelin breakdown in aging. The peripheral nervous system is particularly vulnerable to oxidative damage because nerve cells have high energy demands and relatively limited antioxidant defenses compared to other tissues. Second, cinchonine's anti-inflammatory properties. A 2023 review published in a peer-reviewed pharmacology journal examined cinchonine specifically. The researchers documented that cinchonine demonstrates anti-inflammatory activity through multiple pathways, including inhibition of inflammatory signaling cascades. This matters enormously because chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called neuroinflammation, is now understood to be a key driver of Schwann cell dysfunction and myelin degradation in aging peripheral nerves. Third, the phenolic antioxidant defense. The phenolic compounds and tannins in cinchona bark, including caffeic acid and quinic acid, have been documented to provide protection from oxidative damage in published laboratory studies. A study published in Oriental Pharmacy and Experimental Medicine confirmed that both water and methanol extracts of Cinchona officinalis bark demonstrated significant free radical scavenging activity. The researchers noted that the phenolic compounds in the bark, particularly the tannins, appear to offer measurable protection against oxidative cell damage. Fourth, quinine and muscle cramping in nerve-related conditions. Quinine has a documented history in the treatment of muscle cramps, a condition frequently associated with peripheral nerve dysfunction. While the U.S. today has restricted quinine-containing over-the-counter medicines due to safety concerns in high doses, the mechanism of action, modulating nerve signal transmission to muscle tissue, reflects a genuine pharmacological interaction with the peripheral nervous system. Now, let us be precise about what this all means. These findings tell us that cinchona bark contains a chemically rich profile of compounds that act against oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, and nerve signal disruption, three of the four core mechanisms driving age-related peripheral neuropathy. The research is real, the chemistry is validated, but confirming that a cup of cinchona bark tea will repair your myelin sheaths in the way a prescription drug would requires human clinical trials that have not yet been completed. What we have is compelling biological plausibility, a rich documented history, and a research community actively exploring this compound family for nervous system applications. For hundreds of years, cinchona bark was prepared as a simple decoction, a strong tea made by simmering the bark in water. This is sometimes called quinquina tea, or Peruvian bark tea, in historical texts. The traditional preparation involves taking small pieces of dried cinchona bark, typically from the species Cinchona officinalis, or Cinchona calisaya, and simmering them in water for 15 to 20 minutes. The resulting liquid is intensely bitter. That bitterness itself is a pharmacological signal. It comes from the quinoline alkaloids, and bitter compounds have long been understood to stimulate digestive secretions and influence the nervous system through the vagus nerve pathway. The bark was historically added to wine, which is where the tradition of quinine tonic water originated. In the 19th century, British officers in India mixed quinine-containing tonic water with gin to make the bitter medicine more palatable, giving us the gin and tonic, one of the most famous accidental cocktail inventions in history. Today, dried cinchona bark is available through herbal apothecaries and specialty suppliers. It is the same bark that has been used for nearly 400 years. The alkaloid concentration varies by species and growing region, which is why traditional herbalists always emphasize sourcing from reputable suppliers. Now I want you to listen very carefully, especially if you are over 60, managing multiple health conditions or taking prescription medications. Cinchona bark is not a supplement you take casually. Here is what the science and clinical literature clearly documents. Quinine toxicity is real. In high doses, quinine, the primary alkaloid in cinchona bark, can cause a condition called cinchonism, characterized by ringing in the ears, hearing loss, visual disturbances, nausea, and dizziness. The US FDA requires that any over-the-counter quinine product carry a warning to discontinue use if these symptoms appear. Heart rhythm concerns. Quinidine, another major alkaloid in cinchona bark, is a known cardiac drug used to treat heart arrhythmias. This means it affects electrical conduction in the heart. If you have any history of heart arrhythmia, long QT syndrome, or are taking heart medications, cinchona bark should not be used without direct physician supervision. Drug interactions are significant. Cinchona alkaloids interact with blood thinners, heart medications, diabetes medications, and certain antibiotics. Because quinine affects how the liver processes drugs, it can raise or lower the blood levels of other medications you may be taking. Stomach and bleeding risk. Cinchona bark stimulates stomach acid and may worsen ulcers or gastrointestinal bleeding in susceptible individuals. The bottom line on safety. A small amount of cinchona bark used as a flavoring, the way quinine is used in tonic water, is considered generally safe for most healthy adults. Medicinal use is a different category, and it requires a conversation with your doctor. This is not a supplement you self-prescribe. The science we discussed today is real and promising, but so are the risks when used incorrectly. Whether or not cinchona bark tea is something you and your doctor decide to explore, the science gives us a clear map of what the aging nervous system needs. And there are evidence-based actions you can take today. Number 1. Manage oxidative stress through diet. The research on myelin preservation consistently shows that oxidative damage is a primary driver of nerve decline. A diet rich in polyphenols, found in blueberries, dark leafy greens, olive oil, green tea, and colorful vegetables helps neutralize the free radicals that degrade nerve tissue. This is not speculation. It is one of the most replicated findings in nutritional neuroscience. Number 2. Protect your B vitamins. Vitamin B12 deficiency is one of the most common and most reversible causes of peripheral neuropathy in older adults. As we age, the stomach produces less intrinsic factor, making B12 absorption less efficient. If you have not had your B12 level checked recently, ask your doctor. B12, B6, and folate are all essential for myelin production and maintenance. Number 3. Calorie quality and anti-inflammatory eating. A peer-reviewed study in a leading journal on peripheral nerve repair found that calorie restriction and anti-inflammatory dietary patterns were associated with measurably better myelin architecture in aging animals, including thicker myelin sheaths and better myelin protein expression. Reducing processed sugar, refined carbohydrates, and industrial seed oils reduces the chronic inflammation that accelerates Schwann cell aging. Number 4. Physical activity. Movement stimulates Schwann cell activity, improves circulation to peripheral nerves, and has been shown in multiple studies to support nerve regeneration signals. Even gentle daily walking has measurable benefits for peripheral nerve health in seniors. Number 5. Ask your doctor about cinchona. If you are intrigued by what you have heard today, the right next step is not to order bark off the internet. The right step is to bring this research to your physician or a qualified integrative medicine practitioner and have an honest conversation about whether it is appropriate for your specific health profile, your medications, and your goals. The story of cinchona bark is one of the most remarkable stories in the history of medicine. A tree from the Andes that changed the course of human history. A collection of compounds that scientists are still actively studying, still unlocking, 400 years after that bark first reached European shores. The science of peripheral neuropathy and myelin health is advancing rapidly. We are learning that nerve decline is not a simple, inevitable outcome of aging. It is driven by specific, targetable biological mechanisms: oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, Schwann cell dysfunction. These are processes that diet, lifestyle, and potentially, under proper medical guidance, plant compounds like those in cinchona bark may influence. We will keep following this research and bringing it to you with the honesty and accuracy that this channel has always stood for. If you found this video valuable, please share it with someone you love who might benefit. Leave a comment below telling us about your experience with nerve health. And subscribe so you do not miss our next deep dive into the science of healthy aging.